When students are starting their first course in economics, they often wonder, well, if I become an economist, what kinds of jobs can I do? Let me assure you that there are endless numbers of jobs that you can do, and those numbers are growing over time. So maybe the best way to think about it is there's essentially three sectors of employment in Canada. There's the private sector, where there are companies trying to make profit. That includes banks and insurance companies and investment firms. They hire a lot of economists. There's the not-for-profit sector, which includes a lot of research institutes, think tanks they're sometimes called. So there's places like the Fraser Institute, the C.D. Howe Institute, the Institute for Research and Public Policy. In Waterloo, we have a place called CG that's very close to the campus. So this is where people that do research to try and inform policy, to help governments design good policy. And then, of course, there is the government. And governments hire all kinds of economists to do economic analysis, to try and design what the right policies are. How many immigrants should we admit every year? What should the minimum wage be? How high should our taxes be? If we set them too high, nobody will want to work. But if we set them too low, there's no money to invest in education. So all these are really important policy levers, adjustments that governments need to make, and they need economists to tell them about what the right policies are and which policies will achieve the objectives they're after. It's fun. It's super relevant. It uses tools that have a lot of rigor. So it's not what appealed to me about economics when I first studied it. It wasn't just people throwing around their opinions, because everybody can have an opinion. It was actually trying very hard to understand the truth, to understand how is the world actually working. It's not how I would like it to work or, what I believe to be true. It's what is true. And of course, I'm sure you're all wondering, when I'm not doing my research and when I'm not teaching, how am I spending my time? What are my hobbies? Well, I grew up playing a lot of sports. I grew up in a suburb of Toronto, not too far from here. My father still lives there. My biggest things growing up were playing winter hockey and soccer in the summer, and I still, as much as possible, try to do that, although I'm getting older and it's harder on my body. So now I also enjoy coaching my kids' sports, and at least before the pandemic, that was how most of my time was spent. What is the one piece of advice that I would give an economics student who's just starting out in an economics program at Waterloo? The best thing I can do is just tell you about my own experience. And as I said earlier, my own motivation was very much driven by these questions about, why does life seem to be very unfair? And are there policies that maybe can make life more fair? And so there was a lot of interest in economic inequality. And I think my best piece of advice for a student is to grab onto a question like that, something you're really passionate about and care about. And as you go through your economics education, never lose sight of that question. Never lose sight of that big picture question that motivates you. Because it's very easy, once you get into the weeds and the details of these courses and all this math and derivatives, it's easy to lose sight of why we're doing it and why economics is important. So that would be my single most important advice, is keep the big picture in perspective. Always come back to the big picture, the big questions that matter to you. And that will keep you motivated and will get you through the program and keep you learning much more successfully.